All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Floyd Mayweather Jr. tells the truth to these fighters out here. You might want to think if you got the option to sign with Al Haymon, because this money is about to get thin out here in boxing. And Al Haymon fighters are probably the best in position and in the best position to deal with it. Let's talk about what Floyd Mayweather Jr. had to say and about Al Haymon and these fighters and whether or not it passed the logic or the muster of Fanon's logic, for what that's worth, in this video. All right, welcome back to another wonderful day of chopping it up about the sport of boxing in the midst of a quarantine where we can't see fights. Gotta love it, man. And if you continue to watch videos and chop it up, you know you are a very, very, very serious boxing fan and love the sport of boxing. One of the biggest fighters that have helped develop a love for boxing among many boxing fans over the last 25 years. Is it 25 years? It's 1920, that 24 years, over the last 24 years, is Floyd Money Mayweather. Now, Floyd Money Mayweather has something to say about two boxers that I think that is absolutely spot on. And it actually, him saying it allowed me to make a video that otherwise I would not have been able to make and get the message out about, because I have been thinking about pretty much the same thing. And this is what Floyd Mayweather Jr. said. Now, first, you know who Floyd Mayweather Jr. is. One of the greatest fighters, the best fighter, I believe, that, of the of this century, right? One of the best fighters that I've ever seen. I was a big fan of him fighting, dude. Just, there's a lot of critics of Floyd Mayweather Jr. And I, at times, am one of them for sure. But you cannot deny that this dude is not great. Calling him anything but great, I think, is really diminishing his accomplishments, because the guy is a top-notch fighter, right? And personality in the sport of boxing, and a very shrewd businessman. He could not have got where he was and done the things that he did if he was not a shrewd businessman. And by being shrewd, I mean he knew how to take advice, right? And he knew how to trust somebody and guide in his career to get him to where he wanted to be. And that guy, from everything Floyd Mayweather Jr. said on the business side, is Al Haymon, the guy that runs the PBC. So what Floyd Mayweather Jr. said about this virus situation is that fighters would be smart to sign with Al Haymon. Now, let me tell you why that is. Obviously, or I'm sure you guys have heard that, the problem with this virus is that it is highly contagious. So they have certain protocols in place and you're living it in your daily life now, wherever you are, more than likely. They have certain protocols that will allow that make you have to stand a certain distance from people, wash your hands, do all this stuff. So obviously it's going to be very difficult to get 17,000 people, 5,000 people, 6,000 people, 2,000 people, right, into an arena, sitting right up next to each other in those seats, right, bumping shoulders to watch a boxing match. So promoters are talking about having fights that take place with no fans, right? So if you think about that with the economics of boxing, then you know that there's a significant revenue source that is now eliminated from the equation, and that is the gate, right? If you listen to most big pay-per-views, the money is made between the pay-per-view buys, right? The people that actually buy the fight pay-per-view. You also have the fees that are paid by the by the networks, right? And you got overright televised, the rights for it to be shown overseas, right? You got merchandising and all of that type of stuff that also gets sold. But when you don't have fans, that's going to it's going to cut on them. I do believe it's going to cut down on the merchandising, because you're not being able to buy the t-shirts or whatever else it is, at the fight. And you're pretty much going to be limited to whatever the TV studio, whatever the network pays, and whatever it is that that you might get from pay-per-view. So it's going to slash down the amount of money that's available. And you have guys like Bob Arum who have said, look, when we come back to boxing, fighters got to get used to a new paradigm. They're not going to make as much money. They're not going to make as much money. Now, I personally don't think Bob Arum, like that is going to be, for Bob Arum, that is something that he's hoping is going to continue on even when they get back to crowds, that he's going to pay fighters less money because he never wanted to pay fighters the money that he's paying. But it was the PBC that through their model where fighters started getting paid what they consider to be ridiculous amounts of money, right? So that's the money situation. Without any crowds, the revenue sources, the revenue for the fight gets slashed. And if fighters are getting paid off the gate, that means that they're going to be making less money. The promoters are going to be making less money. So a promoter's telling you, hey, you're going to have to make less money, fighter. So get ready for that. That is what Bob Arum is saying. That's what Floyd Mayweather Jr. is saying. But he's saying this also. That's why you need to sign with Al Haymon. Now, what would be the difference between Al Haymon, right? Why can Al Haymon work with that problem, or a fighter under Al Haymon? Why would that be less of a problem for them than a fighter that is signed with, say, Golden Boy Promotions, or a fighter that is signed with Top Rank, or a fighter that is signed with a traditional promoter? And it is this: Al Haymon is not a promoter. And from what I understand of his fee structures, and I got this from a case, right? From the case where Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya sued Al Haymon for violations of the Sherman Act, violation of the Ali Act. And, the judge balled that shit up and threw it out, right? But in the midst of that case, they talked about how Al Haymon, how he operates. And they say he takes as a manager's fee, he takes significantly less money as a manager than other managers do. He does not take a promoter's fee because he's not a promoter. So with Bob Arum, every fight that a Bob Arum or Top Rank fighter like Lomachenko or Vasily Lomachenko have, Bob Arum is promoting the fight. Bob Arum is paying himself fee for promoting the fight, right? Now, theoretically, Al, like Terrence Crawford and guys like that say, well, really the promoter works for us. And I say, really? No, they do not. Because really what they can do is if you don't agree to a fight that they want, then they can find another fighter that they promote to take that fight. And if they don't give you a fight, you cannot go to another promoter and get a fight from another promoter. You have to sit on the bench, right? Because you turned the fight down. I have long tried to explain to people, no, you work for the promoter. That's what it is, because they have, unless you're Canelo Alvarez, where if you walk away and the whole place is going to go bankrupt, you do not have the leverage. Terrence Crawford does not have the leverage with Bob Arum, or Lomachenko does not have the leverage with Bob Arum that Canelo Alvarez has with Oscar De La Hoya. But a guy like Deontay Wilder doesn't have to worry about that because Deontay Wilder is his own promoter. So if you want to be in a situation where you don't have, because there's two ways to make more money, right? When revenue goes down, what do? You reduce cost, right? If the money that you make is the difference between how much you charge for something, how much you pay for something, and how much you pay for something and how much you sell something for, right? Then you can either sell more or spend less, right? And that's how you maintain what's most important, which is the profit. By fighting with Al, this is the argument that Floyd Mayweather Jr. is making. By cutting out the middleman, right? And working with an Al Haymon who's doing it as a manager slash advisor, who also he doesn't just have minimums, like a minimum amount of money that you have to get for a fight. He also has minimum purses that you have for a fight. But if he asks you to take anything less than that and you agree, then he does not take a fee from it, which makes it in his interest to keep it high. So I say all that to say this: Floyd Mayweather Jr. is making a very valid point, but there's another thing that you need to add. If there's not going to be fans in the seats, If you're not going to be selling tickets to a fight, what do you need the promoter for? If you are not selling tickets to the fight, if you're not doing local advertisements to get people and going out and, doing whatever promoters do to get the people in the city of, to get people to travel from the UK to Las Vegas. If you are not, out there doing, the promoter's not out there doing things to get the people that are local to Atlanta to come to the fight, to the Gervonta Davis fight. If you're not doing any of that, then what do you need the promoter for other than to organize the fight and process the payment from the television network or from the pay-per-view? So the value in the situation where there's no fans, the value of the promoter goes down. So if you were your own boss, you would just say, hey, I'm Terrence Crawford. Hey, Bob, you're not selling any tickets. You're not promoting around here to get people to come in and watch the fight live and sell the tickets. So I don't need you. You know what I mean? All I need is a network and a fight card to get on. And it's much easier, but you can't do that with Top Rank because Bob Arum, again, is controlling the whole fight card. And if he don't want you on the fight card, you got to go. You're going to pay the promoter's fee or you're not going to get on there. But if you're on the PBC, if you're with the PBC or Al Haymon, you can get on fight cards and not even have a promoter, right? Because Errol Spence Jr. doesn't have a promoter. Sean Porter doesn't have a promoter. Danny Garcia doesn't have a promoter. Manny Pacquiao doesn't have a promoter. Adrian Bronner doesn't have a promoter. Those guys can, if they wanted to go fight, they can go fight on DAZN if they want. They could go fight on a Top Rank fight if they want, a Top Rank card if they want, right? Because they do not have a promoter that prevents them from moving around. And in this particular financial environment, that is a benefit to them, and it's an advantage. Now, I'm not saying that all of, that the guys at the PBC are going to be making the same amount of money that they were, if they were fans there. But like I said, with the whole cost, revenue minus cost equals profit thing, at the very least, they have less, like Errol Spence Jr. said, they have less hands in their pockets for the less money. So for the lesser amount of money that's being generated. So they will get a larger portion of whatever money is there versus the, say the Top Rank fighter or the Golden Boy fighter that has to take whatever the purse is that is offered to them by their promoter. Anyway, so that's my take on the matter. I think that was an excellent observation from Floyd Mayweather Jr. and something that we've been saying for a while. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.